Hi, Chris. I just wanted to take a look at your cactus. I actually saw that you turned in the milestone, and that is looking significantly better. I don't I know you talked about going to tutoring, but you're doing a great job so far. But I still wanted to clarify a few things so that you know moving forward. And I also wanted to answer some of the questions that you asked in your email. Feel free to send me emails. Any questions, I'd be happy to do a video for you. Sorry that our phone chat didn't work. I do have Skype. I don't know if you at any point want to Skype to ask any follow-up or just chat. So let me know if that is the case. So you talked about attaching, and I have your first version here. What you were doing with the second version, I think does work well, but I think that's going to be better done in Mudbox because you were basically adding surface detail, kind of texturing, not necessarily modeling. So I see here that you have combined this. So let's separate. All right. So you have these shapes. Really, what we would want to do if this were a perfect world is to extrude from what you already have. So, for example, I would go into face mode, and I could grab these two faces. I'm going to move this out of the way. If you ever find that your gizmo is not attached, you want to go to Modify, Center Pivot, and then it will be back to it. But anyway, so if I go into face mode, select my two faces, I can go to extrude, edit mesh, extrude, and then I'm going to start moving and pulling, however you kind of wanted it to come out. You can scale, because I know you have these kind of rounding in and out. If you hit G on your keyboard, as in like great, you can redo your last action. So that's another extrude. You can kind of, excuse me, start manipulating it how you see fit. Now, the main thing is we are going to be making something that's kind of boxy, right? You've got these nice rounded shapes, and what we're dealing with is, you know, just two base faces, so they're not going to be quite the same. So let me just do another extrude. And I always hit the move tool afterward. Now, you know, this is coming off from your shape more than your other one, so you can always move it and adjust. You can go back and grab an edge loop. Double clicking to grab an edge loop. And you can move these inward. Oops. However you want it to look. Now, the thing I wanted to show you with doing an extrude like that, if you hit hotkey 3 on your keyboard, it rounds it out. So hotkey 3 isn't adding any edges, it's just showing you what it would look like if you were to smooth it out. Now when we add subdivisions in Mudbox, we're smoothing it out. So this is the shape you would get with some subdivisions. I'm going to hit 1 to go back. You can model in hotkey 3 if you prefer. So I could go into face mode, select some faces if we wanted to move them back, or if you want to rotate and move, whatever you wanted it to look like. So you can see if I go into object mode, I'm just going to grab this, send to Mudbox as a new scene. I'll pull this back up for you. But once we hit Shift D, you can see I'm getting the shape that you're going for. Okay, so that's technically how you'd want to make it. I know we're kind of further in the term, so if you want to stick with what you have, that works too. I know you have it already set in Mudbox, so I'm assuming you figured out the UVs. I know you talked about deleting faces. Like you can delete any that are on the inside as long as they don't affect the outside. That's a great thing to pay attention to. Any extra faces that you have are just going to add to the size of your file, add to your UVs as you saw, like it just causes confusion. So you want to keep it as simplified as possible. Even here, to get these rounded edges, you have a lot of edge loops. This pot's looking really good. I think this is a nice number of edge loops because you do want it to be rounded. Yes, when you subdivide, it'll smooth out even further, but you don't need to go crazy and having that be boxy to start with. If you wanted to, you could. Another thing I like to do is go to Edit, Delete by Type, and then History. That kind of cleans up anything that isn't being used. So every time you do an extrude or do a move or grab a vertice, these nodes are collected, these kind of tabs, they're called nodes, and it's information that Maya has to remember. It doesn't affect anything because, you know, once I've done this extrude, I either want it or I'm going to have to delete it and fix it. So it's not something that needs to be remembered. When you click on this and do the Edit, Delete by Type History, what you're doing is cleaning all of that up, and so all that remains is the simplest part of that shape. All right, so then, you know, no matter what kind of style you end up doing, you do need to grab all pieces and then do a mesh combine so that you have one when you're dealing in Mudbox. You can go to your UV editor. Of course, I've messed up things a bit. So I'm just going to do an automatic UV. So this seems pretty good. I mean, the small pieces get a little bit confusing, and it depends on what you're going to do for each side. So you could go in, especially with your pot here, and go into face mode and grab the faces that make up the pot, and you could do a cylindrical map. You would just need to make sure to deselect all of the dirt and cactus. Gets a little tedious, but that's all right. And make sure you have all of them selected that you want. And we could do a cylindrical map on that. Now you can see though we've got overlapping, so that's when you need to scale and move your UVs so that they fit. So I right mouse click and hold, go to UV shell. That's when you can kind of scale and move some of these other ones. You just want to make sure that none of your pieces are overlapping. And we're going to be painting in Mudbox, so you don't really have to worry about the size and what you're dealing with. Looks like I've got several pieces here, so I might want to go back through and fix it if you want to go over UVs more, but I know you have things in Mudbox already. So I will go into object mode, send to Mudbox. All right, so then we've got this. Shift D to subdivide, and then you can continue doing whatever you were kind of working with. Now, let me open yours. Just takes a little bit. Okay, high resolution, that's fine. That just means there are a lot of edges, faces. You've got a lot going on, lots of detail. So now looking at this, you did subdivide quite a bit. So I'm going to try to zoom in here. You can see the grid. This is very small. So I'm not sure how many times you actually did a subdivide, but I would try to kind of slow it down a little bit and see if you can still get your details without having that level of subdivisions. I would be interested to know what tools you used to create this. I think this is working really well. I would just keep it going down. You know, it stops abruptly here. I'll just keep that going downward. You had talked about masking too. Basically, a mask in Mudbox allows you to select a section with kind of like a paintbrush, and then you can use the sculpting tools to only affect that section. So if you were, let's say, using a brush down here and you didn't want it to affect this face, you only wanted to affect the arm here, you would do a mask. So you can select this, and it's basically, if you're used to Photoshop, it's more like making a selection than using a mask. Okay, and if you do want to go over those, I'd be happy to do another video and discuss them. I do work during the days, but I am able to do videos most of the time late afternoon, early evening. So feel free to send me an email and I can respond again. All right, hope this makes sense. I mean, this is great progress. I like the texture that you have going for the dirt. I think the cactus is looking really nice. You could vary up some of the spikes. You have a nice pattern going on. If you wanted to, you could keep it the pattern, or you could see what it looks like to be more organic. You could also play around with the spikes. Let's see. These ones even have little stars. This can be done, you know, when you're actually painting. You'll paint the green, you can do the brown. That might be a nice addition. If you want, you can go in with a smaller sculpting brush, like really tiny, and just pull little wisps out. I wouldn't worry about it too much. You can keep it simplified. I think it works really well. So just let me know what you want to do next and we can make it happen. All right, and since you have these as separate shapes, you'll need to do separate textures. Not sure, oh, this will be the dirt, isn't it? Yeah, so when we move forward to our texture maps and having, you know, the normal, the diffuse, the opacity map, you'll need one for each shape. So if you do the mesh combine, then you'll only need to do one and it'll be laid out on the whole thing. So let me know if that makes sense too. Alrighty, I'll talk to you later.